It is 5:30 a.m. on August 26, 1980. The casino floor is quiet, a few cleaners pushing carts, the slot machines still blinking from the night before. State Line, Nevada, sits beautifully on the edge of Lake Tahoe. Tourists will arrive later by the thousand, but for now, the town breathes slowly. A security guard making his rounds turns a corner on the second floor and stops. In the middle of the executive suite, where the plush carpet should be unbroken, sits a metal box. It looks entirely out of place. It is rectangular, gray, and industrial, lifted carefully off the floor on 4 small wooden blocks. It has no power cord, no nameplate, and no copier tray. Whoever placed it there took care not to leave footprints or marks on the carpet, as if they were constructing a scene meant to confuse and terrify in equal measure. At first, the guard assumes it is a delivery, but then he notices the envelope lying beside it. The flap is stamped Harvey's management in block letters. He calls a custodian over and, with a nervous smile, says, "Do not touch anything." The joke dies as soon as he opens the envelope. Inside is a single page titled "Stern Warning to the Management and Bomb Squad." The ransom note warned that a movement of less than 0.01 on the Richter scale would set off the bomb, and explicitly stated, "Do not try to take it apart," as the exterior flathead screws were attached to triggers, where as little as a quarter or a half turn would cause an explosion. The guard does the sensible thing by telling everyone to leave the area and calling for help. By dawn, the corridor outside Harvey's is surrounded by local law enforcement. Sheriff's deputies and the Tahoe Douglas bomb squad arrive and begin securing the scene. Gas mains are shut off, and guests are quietly evacuated to buses that take them to a nearby high school gymnasium. The once bustling casino is now silent, its upper floor cordoned off as bomb technicians begin their work. They photograph the metal casing, dust it for fingerprints, and take small scrapings of paint for analysis. They then bring in an X-ray machine and scan the box section by section, since no single device is large enough to image the whole thing at once. The results confirm what the letter had warned. The bomb is complex and deliberate. The lower box displays a dense, solid mass of material, with thick wires extending from the top section into it, much like veins leading to a dark, central core. The ransom letter claims the device contains 1,000 pounds of tent. Scientists would later debate the terminology, but the metallurgists and explosives experts reached a chilling conclusion that the bomb was packed with nearly 1,000 pounds of stolen dynamite. It has been assembled with expert precision, the work of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. This is not a crude homemade device. It is careful, disciplined, and terrifyingly professional. On its top panel are 28 toggle switches arranged neatly in 2 rows. All are in the same position except one, the 23rd switch, which is flipped upward. The configuration appears more like a coded challenge than a control system. The person who built this wants to be taken seriously, and the note leaves no doubt about that. It demands $3 million in used $100 bills and promises instructions on how to disable 2 of the 3 internal timers once the payment is received. It warns that any failure to follow directions will result in another bomb being placed elsewhere. The bomb technicians, veterans who have faced countless dangerous devices, quickly realize the situation is beyond precedent. If the X-rays are accurate, a single mistake, such as a tilted movement or a wrong screwdriver turn, could obliterate the entire floor and much of the surrounding area. The decision is made to evacuate hundreds of patrons and employees from nearby casinos, while Harrah's across the street boards up its windows in preparation for the worst. By late morning, a public hotline is open to manage the growing panic, but behind the scenes, the atmosphere is one of controlled urgency. The bomb's design is unlike anything experts have encountered. It includes mercury switches, atmospheric sensors, float triggers, and screws wired directly into detonators. Every single component appears to be designed to prevent interference. The question everyone now faces is the one that no one can easily answer. How do you disarm something designed never to be disarmed? For the moment, the only viable response is to buy time. The FI is called in, and special agents, bomb experts, and metallurgists begin to arrive at the scene, gathering in the shaded parking lot outside the casino. Cameras are positioned to capture every detail of the investigation. Plans are made, discarded, and revised again as the reality of the situation sets in. The X-ray films confirm that the lower section is indeed packed with explosives. Calculations suggest that if the claim of 1,000 pounds is even close, the resulting blast would level everything within several city blocks. A lab technician examining the casing notices a faint smear on the steel. When tested, it turns out to be blood. The drop is carefully collected, sealed, and sent to the FI's laboratory in Washington. Every possible trace of evidence will matter later. Detectives and agents begin making calls to specialized units, the bomb lab, metallurgists, and the nuclear emergency search team. Reinforcements arrive from Reno and Sacramento. What had started as a bizarre threat is now being treated as one of the most serious domestic bomb cases in U.S. history. By noon, the Nevada National Guard is contacted about the possibility of a wider evacuation. Harrah's Casino, connected to Harvey's through an underground tunnel, shuts down operations entirely. A high school gymnasium fills with displaced guests as emergency staff distribute blankets and bottled water. Outside, reporters set up cameras near the barricades, broadcasting updates to a nation now riveted by the mystery. Authorities warn everyone to keep at least 1,200 feet away from the site. The technicians inside the building proceed cautiously, aware that a wrong move could trigger the device. The letter's chilling tone leaves no room for interpretation, and so they wait, studying and planning their next move. Forensic samples are flown to Washington for analysis. Every piece of evidence, from fingerprints to solder marks, is examined in the hope of tracing it back to its maker. Metallurgists focus on the quality of the welds and details that could indicate the tools or methods used to build the device. Somewhere, they believe, a signature exists in the metal. The clock, however, is not on their side. The letter warned of 3 timers, each set for a different detonation sequence. Hours pass, and every moment could be the last. The Douglas County Sheriff calls for additional federal assistance, and by mid-afternoon, an FI helicopter lands nearby, carrying Special Agent Bill Jonke and his team from Las Vegas. They set up a command post with folding tables, maps, and radios beneath a makeshift canopy outside the casino entrance. Inside, the bomb remains untouched, waiting like a silent machine. Agent Jonke studies the photographs and reads the letter aloud to his colleagues. The note repeats its threats in precise detail. A movement of less than 0.01 on the Richter scale will trigger it. The screws are wired to triggers, and even the creator himself could not disarm it without detonation. Then comes the demand. $3 million in unmarked $100 bills. $3 million is not a random number. It is large enough to demand respect, yet small enough to seem within reach. Harvey Gross, the casino's owner, listens as the agents debate their options. If we pay, we might catch him, one suggests. If we refuse, he might destroy the entire building. Gross shakes his head and quietly replies, "I'm not paying $3 million." He later authorizes a token payment of $5,000 and instructs the agents to do whatever they can. The letter provides specific instructions for delivering the ransom. A helicopter pilot must land at Lake Tahoe Airport at 2300 hours, facing east, unarmed and alone. He is to wait by the chain-link fence until further instructions are delivered, either by taxi or through a public telephone call at exactly 10 hours. Before takeoff, he must shine a flashlight through the helicopter's interior to prove there is no one hiding inside. The bomber's obsession with control is unmistakable. He wants every part of the exchange to unfold exactly as he dictates. For the FI, this is both a challenge and an opportunity. The ransom drop could expose the bomber's movements, so agents prepare a plan that mixes authenticity with deception. They mark serial numbers on real currency, fill the rest of the bags with cut paper, and wire the pilot with a hidden transmitter. Ground teams are deployed along Highway 50, where unmarked vehicles wait in silence. At midnight, the phone at the airport rings as the letter promised. The pilot answers and reads out the instructions as they are received. He is told to fly west along Highway 50 at 500 feet for 15 miles until he sees a flashing strobe light marking the landing zone. He follows the directions through the blackness over the mountains, the road below winding like a silver ribbon. Ground units pace him in their vehicles, sweeping the roadside with headlights. They find nothing. The strobe never appears. Whether the instructions were intentionally vague or deliberately misleading, the result is the same. There is no meeting, no handoff, no contact. When the pilot returns to base, the command tent is silent. The agents realize that the bomber's true power is not just in the explosive he built, but in the control he maintains over information. He dictates the pace, and everyone else follows. By dawn, they know two things with certainty. The bomb inside Harvey's is real, and the man who built it is still out there, watching. The helicopter should have been the moment of contact, the point where the bomber revealed himself or his courier, but instead, it becomes proof that he is playing a different kind of game. He has built not only a machine but also a choreography of control, one where every move leads nowhere except back to him. The ransom instructions had been detailed to the minute, yet the failure of the exchange shows that the maker never truly intended to appear. The next morning, the command shifts from a ransom operation to a full-scale criminal investigation. Every call that comes into the FI hotline is logged, transcribed, and cross-checked for accuracy. The local press keeps the story alive, and with each update, new tips pour in. Some claim to have seen men in white overalls near delivery bays. Others report a white van parked behind the casino in the early hours of the morning. Each lead is investigated, though most lead to nothing. Inside the FI's temporary command post, two efforts unfold side by side. On one side are the technicians, poring over X-rays, wiring diagrams, and metallurgical samples. On the other hand, investigators are chasing human trails, motel check-ins, vehicle registrations, and dynamite thefts. Slowly, the two sides begin to converge. The X-rays reveal more than just complexity. They reveal intention. The top section of the bomb is packed with circuitry, mercury switches, relays, and timing devices, while the lower half contains a near-solid block of explosive material. Analysts from the Nuclear Emergency Search Team estimate that if detonated, the blast could destroy most of the hotel and severely damage Harrah's across the street. The bomb's construction suggests someone with experience in engineering or demolition, not a casual gambler seeking attention. Weeks before the Harvey's incident, a wooden truss bridge near Fresno had been destroyed by a dynamite explosion. Investigators now see that event as a possible test run for the device that would later be placed in the casino. Around the same time, large quantities of dynamite were reported stolen from construction sites in the Fresno and Clovis areas. Each theft is now being re-examined as part of a growing pattern of incidents. Public appeals are made, and the FI increases the reward for information. Flyers circulate throughout Nevada and California, and the image of Harvey's 5-story crater begins appearing on national television. Viewers across the country see the twisted steel, the crumbling concrete, and the haunting precision of the destruction. Among the flood of calls that follow, most are false alarms, but a few details stand out. A plate number, a description of a white van, a man with an accent, and a temper who has spoken openly about revenge against a casino. Inside the bureau, behavioral profilers study the bomber's letter. Its tone is methodical and its structure almost theatrical, suggesting a person who craves control and recognition. He is intelligent, meticulous, and convinced of his superiority over those trying to stop him. The use of formal language, the obsession with precision, and the need to dictate every step of the ransom process all point to someone with technical training and a high need for dominance. The motive begins to take shape. The bomber likely has a personal grudge against the casino, possibly connected to gambling losses. He is someone who has both the skill to construct a sophisticated device and the resentment to justify using it. As the investigation widens, the FI begins to focus on a series of thefts that occurred 2 months before the bombing. Several hundred pounds of dynamite had gone missing from a construction site outside Fresno. Agents cross-referenced the theft reports with vehicle registrations for white vans and delivery trucks in the region. It is tedious work, but one name keeps appearing in the margins: John Birges. At first, Birges seems an unlikely suspect. A Hungarian immigrant living in Clovis, California, he runs a landscaping business and is known locally as a hardworking but temperamental individual. He drives a white van, fits the physical description, and most importantly, has a background that includes experience with explosives. Investigators learned that Birges had once been imprisoned in a Soviet labor camp before emigrating to the United States. He claims to have been a pilot during World War II and later boasts about his mechanical expertise. To those who know him, he is a man of contradictions, intelligent but reckless, proud but financially troubled, a heavy gambler who once lost a fortune at Harvey's casino. Agents in Fresno begin to monitor his movements discreetly. They collect statements from neighbors and former employees. A few of them recall seeing unusual activity around his workshop in the weeks leading up to the bombing: late-night welding, unfamiliar visitors, and large wooden crates being loaded into his van. As the evidence begins to build, the investigation tightens around Birges and his circle. He has 2 sons, both of whom worked for him in his landscaping business. They are young, loyal, and easily influenced. Interviews reveal that their father had spoken about getting even with people who had wronged him and had hinted at plans involving a big payoff. The FI's case gains momentum when one of Birges' sons, under growing pressure, confides in a girlfriend about his father's secret project. When the relationship ends, the girlfriend mentions the story to her new partner, who, upon hearing of the FI's reward for information, calls the bureau. The tip is logged, verified, and escalated within hours. Agents now have a credible witness who connects Birges directly to the bomb. They trace his van's movements and confirm that it had been seen near Lake Tahoe around the time of the incident. Forensic work continues in parallel. The paint samples taken from the bomb match the same brand and composition used in Birges' workshop. Fragments of wiring are identical to those sold by a local hardware store that kept a record of purchases made under his name. Even the blood found on the bomb casing is consistent with an injury Birges sustained shortly before the bombing, when he reportedly cut himself while working with tools. The case that began with uncertainty is now taking clear shape. The FI connects the theft of dynamite in Fresno to the components found in Harvey's device. The unique switches, relays, and feed mechanisms used in the bomb are traced back to specific agricultural equipment standards in Birges' landscaping business, including a type of turkey feeder with identical toggles and sensors. Each piece of evidence builds upon the last. By the time agents move in, they have enough to close the circle. On August 16, 1981, nearly a year after the explosion, FI agents and local police surrounded Birges' home in Fresno. The man who once believed he could outsmart everyone else is arrested without incident. Neighbors watch in disbelief as federal agents carry boxes of evidence out of his workshop: wiring, tools, photographs, and handwritten notes. In one corner, they find an unfinished metal box, similar in design to the one that had destroyed the casino. From the outside, the arrest of John Birges looks like the end of the story. Still, for investigators, it is only the beginning of a longer process, the slow unraveling of the man who built the most sophisticated bomb they had ever seen. When agents bring him in, he is calm, even confident, as if he still believes he can outthink the system. In his workshop, they find remnants of the materials used to build the device, including wiring identical to that found at the casino, empty crates that once held dynamite, and sketches of mechanical designs matching the inner structure of what the FI now refers to as the machine. Under questioning, Birges initially denies everything. He claims that his only connection to the bombing is a coincidence, that disgruntled employees and vindictive former friends are framing him. But as the interviews continue, his story begins to shift. He admits to gambling heavily at Harvey's resort hotel, acknowledges that he lost more than $700,000 there, and confesses that he once fantasized about getting revenge on the casino that, in his words, took everything from him. Agents press further, showing him the recovered blueprints, the metallurgical matches, and the testimony of his own sons. The arrogance that once defined him begins to fade. It becomes clear that Birges had not acted alone. Two men from his landscaping business, Terry Hall and Willis Brown, had helped deliver the bomb, posing as photocopier technicians. A woman named Ella Williams had typed the extortion letter. All of them had followed his instructions without truly understanding the danger of what they were carrying. When confronted with the evidence, Birges' sons cooperate with authorities. They testify that their father had forced them to help move explosives and that he had spoken repeatedly about a plan to extort money from the casino. Their cooperation spares them prison, but their testimony seals their father's fate. In 1982, after a lengthy and highly publicized trial, John Birges is convicted on 8 counts, including conspiracy, interstate transport of explosives, and attempted extortion. The court sentences him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge calls the crime an act of cold, calculated arrogance, a phrase that echoes through the courtroom as the verdict is read. The accomplices face their own trials. Terry Hall was convicted the same year and sent to prison for conspiracy and transporting explosives across state lines. Willis Brown pleads guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence, while Ella Williams's conviction for attempted extortion and conspiracy is later overturned on appeal. She eventually pleads guilty to being an accessory, receiving a light sentence and early parole. For the people of State Line, the aftermath of the bombing is surreal. In the days following the explosion, the damaged portion of Harvey's resort hotel becomes a skeleton of twisted steel and broken concrete. The blast had carved a 5-story crater into the heart of the building, leaving behind dangling television sets, broken plumbing, and the charred remains of furniture suspended midair. Photographs of the wreckage are broadcast across the nation. The image is both horrifying and strangely miraculous, scary because of the scale of destruction, miraculous because no one had been killed. Harrah's, located across the street and connected by an underground tunnel, suffers shattered windows and structural damage, but it reopens within days. Harvey's, determined to survive, begins rebuilding almost immediately. Workers clear debris around the clock, and by May 1981, less than a year later, the hotel is fully repaired and reopened to the public. The crater is gone, but those who were there remember exactly where it had been. Behind the scenes, the FBI preserves the legacy of the case in a different manner. At Quantico, bomb technicians build a full-scale replica of the device based on photographs, X-rays, and surviving fragments. It has been used to train new agents for decades, serving as a constant reminder of the complexity they faced and the discipline it took to prevent loss of life. Among explosives experts, Harvey's bomb becomes a benchmark, the most intricate improvised explosive device ever recovered in the United States. Birges spends the rest of his life in the Southern Nevada Correctional Center. He grows older, more withdrawn, and increasingly frail. In 1996, 16 years and 1 day after the explosion, he dies of liver cancer at the age of 74. For the Bureau, the case closes with a strange symmetry. The man who built an undefeatable bomb is undone not by law enforcement but by time. Even after his death, the story refuses to fade. The FBI's laboratory division continues to use Harvey's case as a study in precision and patience. The bomb is dissected in detail during training sessions, every switch, relay, and trigger examined as a lesson in how human ingenuity can be both brilliant and dangerous. To this day, the trial model of the bomb remains on display, its maze of wiring still capable of making even veteran technicians pause in admiration. State Line eventually returns to its rhythm. The casino floor fills once again, with tourists chasing luck under the glow of slot machines and the hum of neon. Yet, somewhere beneath the laughter and the music, there lingers the memory of that morning when a single box turned an entire town silent. The rebuilt floor still carries faint traces of the event. A slight change in tile color, where the new construction meets the old, a subtle reminder of the day the game nearly ended. For those who lived through it, the Harvey's bombing remains a paradox. It is a story of disaster narrowly avoided, of a machine that worked perfectly yet failed. The bomb detonated, but it killed no one. The hotel was destroyed, but the investigation succeeded. It stands as proof that patience and precision, the very traits that made the device so deadly, were also the ones that saved lives. In the end, the story of the Harvey's casino bombing is not simply about a man seeking revenge or money. It is about the lengths to which obsession can drive the human mind, about how brilliance without restraint becomes self-destruction. John Birges believed he had built a perfect weapon, one that no one could defeat, but in the quiet aftermath of the blast, all that remained was a crater, a lesson, and a silence that stretched across the Nevada sky. As dawn rises once more over Lake Tahoe, the lights of the rebuilt casino flicker to life, casting reflections across the water as if nothing ever happened. The game, as always, continues.